Good morning, everyone. Oh, afternoon.
It's good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us. I'm going to give us a few more minutes for everyone to log. Well, no, like one more minute for everybody to log in. So I'm going to right now ask Dr. Caldwell Thompson to introduce herself. She is a new member of our working group, and Dr. Thompson, who we have on the phone, are Renee Dabbs and Mark Aileen from the Warehouse Arts District, and Kim Carlin from Ashton Drake. Okay. So now everybody's coming in. So we have we'll see two new people today. But if it's okay with you, we'll start with the, let me take 2 steps back and welcome everybody to today's call. We're going to bring you up to date from our last meeting. Our last meeting, it ended with us selecting a developer for the vertical improvements on 22nd Street South that are funded via the NEA grant. And we selected Ashton Drake. We have Kim Carlin from Ashton Drake on the call. So why don't we get started by having everyone introduce themselves. And if it's okay, let's start with the people who are brand new, which would be Tracy Kennard and Dr. Thompson. So I'm sort of going in alphabetical order, not really Caldwell. So Dr. Thompson, if you would introduce yourself, that would be great.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, okay. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Loretta Caldwell Thompson. And just so that you don't have to say that long name, you could just call me Dr. T, and that's fine. I am president of Caldwell Management Solutions. We are an organizational development company that we do help business grow their capacity, through training and strategic planning, as well as we do some speaking and leadership institute sessions. And I am just very interested. I am a new member of St. Petersburg. I've only been here 5 years. I hail from Washington, D.C., where I just happen to be right now. And I just have been impressed by what's going on in the Deuces. And it reminds me of the development in Southeast Washington here in DC. And I just wanted to help in some small way. So I asked Beatrice, how can I do that? She suggested that this is one of the hardest working teams in America. So I said, well, maybe I could do a little piece. And so here I am. So again, good afternoon. And I am excited about what the team is going to do futuristically.
Thank you. And Tracy, can you introduce yourself?
Hey, Beatrice, it's good to see your face. I am Tracy Kennard. I'm here today representing St. Pete Arts Alliance on behalf of John Collins, since today is his last day in the office as he's retiring. So happy to be here, happy to learn about what's been going on with this project and anything I can do to help.
Okay, so now we're going to go in just regular alphabetical order, last name first. So Wayne, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, Wayne Atherholt, the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, and like Dr. T, I moved here from Washington, D.C., but I did that right after grad school, and I'm getting close to retirement, so that was back in 1985. So I almost bought my first condo in the Southeast, but decided to move to
okay.
Florida.
Look, I understand why now. I mean, because it's great. I love being in St. Pete. Even though I love D.C., but I love being in St. Pete.
It's a great place, but every day I still think of DC. It's another great place. So anyway, welcome. And,
okay, thank you, Wayne.
Okay, so I'm not really doing good with my alphabetical because Mark Ailing was before before Wayne. Sorry about that. Mark, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Ailing,
Oh shoot.
neighbor association for the Deuces, and we've been working extensively with Beatrice, and she is a board member of our organization. So also the owner of MGA's Culture Studio, and it's good to see everybody.
Okay, Miss Gloria.
Hi, Gloria Campbell. I am a business on the Deuces. I was here before any of you all got here, other than probably Wayne. Uh, I moved here in 1999, opened my business, and I've been here ever since. And I've been part of the Deuces board, both the 22nd Street Redevelopment Corp and the Deuces Live board. Served in probably every capacity except treasurer, because I don't mess with anybody's money but mine on the board. And just glad to be here. Looking forward to it.
Renee.
Hi, I'm Renee Dabbs. I'm the interim executive director at the Warehouse Arts District Association. I actually am also a business management consultant in the Tampa Bay area, focusing in on not-for-profits, and used to spend a week a month in DC. So we will definitely need to connect, Dr. T. I would love to pick your brain on what's going on these days. And thanks for including me. Nice meeting everyone.
And the last person of our team in alphabetical order is Jason.
Unmute. Hi, Jason Mathis. I'm the CEO of the Downtown Partnership and a proud partner to the Deuces in supporting their efforts as we continue to create this magical place in St. Pete.
Okay, so I'm going to introduce Kaylin McGough. She is with CapEx Advisory and our partners on this initiative. And I'm going to allow Kaylin to do the introductions for the design team and outline what we're going to do today.
Great. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Kaylin McGough with CapEx Advisory Group. Was introduced to Beatrice probably a couple of years ago now to get a handle on kind of everything that's happening around the corridor and identify some ways that we could help to advance capital projects specifically. But we came across this opportunity through the NEA to support this placemaking initiative, and it felt like such a good fit with everything that has been happening in that community. So many of you are already up to speed on kind of our process, and the last time we met, we were looking at a couple of proposals that came in after our RFP, and we as a team decided to go ahead with Ashton, and today we are excited to actually have the folks from Ashton Design on us with the call, and so we have a lot to cover actually in our short time today. So I'm going to hand it over to the principal, Alexi, to introduce the rest of his team.
Yeah, thank you, Kaylin and Beatrice. Hello, everyone. We're excited to be here and get started, and lots to dig in and learn and explore with you all. On my team here today, we have Kim Carlin and Michelle Giotti. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, right. Do you all see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Yes, maybe you can make it the full screen.
Okay.
Perfect.
Does that work?
Yes.
All right. Do you see the page advance?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So yeah, I think we wanted to go through and get some introductions that I think you all introduced yourselves, which is great. So again, from our team, I am the creative director and principal on Ashton, and we also have Kim. Kim, if you want to introduce yourself as well.
I'm working on this project on the stakeholder engagement part and some of the strategy. I've been working with Ashton Design for quite a while. I spent 10 years as the associate VP for communications at Maryland Institute College of Art, and have been just very immersed in the arts community here in Baltimore. So I'm excited to be working on this project with you.
And Michelle, I guess you want to say hello.
Sure. Hi, my name is Michelle Giotti. I'm a senior designer at Ashton, where I work on a variety of projects across branding, environmental, and just about everything. I'm very excited to work on this with you all.
So I'll run through a little bit about Ashton and what we do and how we approach things and some of our past projects. And then of course, we'll go into an overview of this project and our scope, a bit about our process, and then some Q&A and brainstorming. And there's a lot of information, so we're going to follow up with items as well, just so everyone has that and can review on their own. Yeah, again, we're going to build on the momentum of everything that's been done already. And we know there's a lot of things that are happening and ongoing that have been established. So we want to make sure and build upon all of those elements. We're excited to kind of bring our vision and help realize your vision with our creative approach. So about us, for over 35 years, Ashton's been conceiving brands and placemaking initiatives for all sorts of spaces in different types of industries and environments. And again, what we like to think about the most appropriate design that reflects the inherent authenticity of a project. So we're very keen on understanding the specifics of a project and what makes it work. A bit about our history is the clients that we've worked on in projects. Since the conception of Camden Yards in 1992, we've been working on the fan experience and placemaking, environmental graphics. Up until today, we're helping with additional additions and initiatives. So we have a good understanding of people and place. And similarly, Fenway Park, but also JetBlue Park, which is in Fort Myers, helping with the environmental graphics there as well as placemaking and fan experience. And additionally, somewhat more recently, Dodger Stadium in LA, complete renovation initiative, all sorts of touch points from fan experience and just, great things about the stadium, the place, and the team. Here in Maryland, we worked on a project Meriwether District with Howard Hughes Corporation. So this was a district near Meriwether Post Pavilion. And we worked with the architectural team to create some very creative signage and identification and wayfinding for the project to really kind of accentuate the creative and boldness of their initiative and brand. Old Ellicott City, it's a cute little town here in Maryland, has a very, very long history and really community members that have very invested in the town and city. And of course, it's been flooded recently with major floods that ran through the space, and it's kind of devastated a lot, but they're still kind of coming back. So we worked with them to kind of create their brand and identity and even help them with naming. We decided to end up using Old Ellicott City as kind of the colloquial term as the place identifier and logo. And then as you can see, ECP, Ellicott City Partnership, was the organization, the business development organization that oversees all of this. And so we kind of worked with them to create an identity that fit within the district identity, but then also had their own separate identity. So kind of building upon the history and again, kind of the timely current day aesthetic. And finally, the Avenue at White Marsh, it's a retail center, but we did a lot of creative placemaking and elements throughout that really kind of activated the space. And it was an existing center that needed a lot of love. So we created a lot of really fun, playful elements, building upon the nature and theme, the nature, flora and fauna aspect of Maryland. So that's kind of a bit about how we approach things and kind of giving you an idea of the range of types of projects and spaces that we work within. And we really want to reveal the soul of a place and what makes it unique, and communicate that through clear messaging and of course stunning visuals. So the messaging part is really important to us as well, and how that translates into physical elements as well as the branded environment. And this process is very important with as a collaboration, and working together with you all to make sure that we're achieving everything and we're understanding everything, and therefore creating the best solution. And of course, we want to help you all and bring about all the greatest things that are within Deuces, and understanding again what that means and how we can help you all translate that. And Kim, do you want to kind of go into this part of the process?
Sure. The part of the project that I'm going to be most engaged in is the stakeholder engagement, which is the idea of having listening sessions like the one that we're going to start with you today, but doing this with other groups as well, which we'll talk about in a minute, and coming back to you with the sort of mirroring back of what we heard, how what we heard from the stakeholders will inform the work that we do that happens moving forward on all the other phases of the project.
Yes, so these 4 items are kind of the bulk of our scope and initiative that we're going to be working on. Ultimately, district identity and vertical elements, as well as an activation strategy is what we're going to ultimately produce and develop. But of course, the stakeholder engagement portion is a big part of us moving forward into those next pieces. So for the district identity, we want to conduct an audit of everything that's representative of the brand, and at least the visual identity, as well as messaging and information that is being put out from the Deuces and Deuces Live. So we'll kind of assess and study everything that's existing, and then ultimately make suggestions on how to best tailor that information and really hone in on the key items visually and from a messaging perspective that makes most sense and that's going to speak to the intended audience. And for the vertical elements, we are ultimately looking to create a gateway, some sort of gateway pylon sign, vertical element, as well as potential branded bike racks, benches, and other elements throughout the space. Some we have an idea of, some we don't, and that's kind of through this process, talking with you all, we want to get a good understanding of what that really should be and what that needs to be. And we're not necessarily saying it has to be this or that, but we know that there's parameters to work within, and then figuring out what is the best approach. And then finally, the activation strategy. And we'll propose and make recommendations on existing events and activities that happen within the Deuces, and then propose new ones that may work best and coincide with all the other initiatives that we're suggesting. And again, just getting a good understanding of what you all think is what's most important, and then how we can help to inform the public or the internal members. And Michelle, do you want to touch on this briefly?
Sure. So in terms of our project timeline, here kind of gives you the overview of how all of the phases will work. So, we're just about into April, which is where phase 1 really kicks off with stakeholder engagement. And so that will work primarily from April to about mid-May, or that's our intention. Then we're going to take all of that information and synthesize it together into a presentation where we'll share all of our findings at the end of May. Those findings will also greatly impact and inspire what we're doing for the actual cultural district identity and the phase 3 vertical element designs. So those are coming in June. And then in July, they sort of overlap a little bit as we sort of start to get some final ideas towards the cultural district identity that will inspire, and the vertical element design, and those pieces kind of work together. So there'll be a little overlap there. And so, towards the end of July and into August, we'll be working kind of on all those pieces a little bit in tandem, the activation strategy as well. And as we're going through August and into September, our intentions are to have this all done about mid-September, the general plan.
And Kim, do you want to?
Sure, I can talk about this. So your committee is a key reviewer of everything that we're going to be doing. We're also going to be forming a relatively small working group of people who are interested in really participating at a more granular level in the process and reviewing things in process as they're in process. Early in the process, we're going to be, for our discovery process, we will be talking to people in key stakeholder groups, including the city, business owners and other people in the quarter who have strong opinions about that. And we're going to have some more open opportunities for people to comment and to share and to provide input, both in this front end discovery process, but also along the way as well. And so we can talk a little bit more about that process. But right now we want to focus on the role of this committee, the NEA Advisory Committee. So you want to go to the, yeah, here we go. So we're having this meeting right now, and because we only have 45 minutes with you, we'd like to have like a half a day with you, but we're going to get started on the process, and we're going to invite you to participate in to complete a survey to give us both your input on the key kind of focus group questions that we're going to be asking in discovery, and also to give us a little bit of feedback on that discovery process. What are we asking the right questions? We can start talking about that today, but we want to be respectful of your time. We will, in May, we'll be doing a phase 1 findings presentation, which you'll be invited to participate in, and so that you can hear what we heard during discovery and how that's going to inform the work moving forward. Throughout from June through August, we're going to be having meetings with the working group, and if any members of this committee are interested in participating in the working group, you should let Beatrice know. There is a time commitment to that part of the process, which is to attending a lot more meetings than you would as a part of this committee. And you will have an opportunity in August when we have things pretty much fleshed out. You'll be able to see everything before it gets nailed down and delivered. So that's the process, and some opportunities for you to continue to be engaged in this. So the first question that we have for you is, do you have any questions about the project or the process? And we'd like to get through. We'd like to get your input on the process and the project and the way that we're approaching it, and particularly if you have any questions, which we can address for you. Does anybody have questions about this or about the committee's role?
And I'm just going to say that we have a time certain to stop. So if we start answering, don't feel like if I start answering the questions, we won't get out of here at 2:45. We've made that commitment, but please, this is the part where we really need your feedback for the next 15 minutes or so. So please feel free to speak.
That's right. And if whatever we don't get through, you're welcome to, you can comment in the survey. And we really hope that everybody on this committee will participate in that and give us some input. And if you feel like you want to have a conversation about any of it, we're happy to do that as well along the way. Well, let's keep going through the questions. And if anybody has any has thoughts, if you don't have questions now, you may by the end of this presentation. You're totally welcome to share that with us through the survey. It would be great to hear you talk about what you were in on the planning for this project. You're a key body in reviewing and providing input and feedback, and helping to nail down this project as it moves forward. Do you come into this with some expectations that you'd like to share with us? And for those of you who have been thinking about this for a while, do you have some ideas about how you're going to measure success? How you'll know that we've done what you hope to do when we're finished with this process?
This is Dr. T. Many of the projects that you have worked on, especially the ones in Maryland, I have seen and I have been there. And I've always wondered who was the backdrop of those pieces. And I mean, because it gives you a feeling for that particular area. So when I measure what success will look like, I look at how it will make me feel in presenting that particular area? Does my feeling match what is going on in that area? Now, how do you measure that? I don't really know, but especially Ellicott City. I mean, I was so hurt when the flood came, but still, you know, it has eclectic mix there. So the artwork and the, what you say, branding pieces and your messaging pieces, you know, does come out, so that when I recommended people to go there, and when they see that, that enhances their desire to want to be there. So I don't know how you measure that feeling part, you know, whether it's the color, you know, whether it's uniqueness of the design, you know, I'm not quite sure, but that's my expectation, that what you're going to do for the Deuces will make people know that we are in the Deuces area, regardless of whether you live there or not.
That's a great answer. And, anybody else have other things that you will be looking at as you measure success? Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
This is Gloria. I also would like to make sure that we preserve the history and the heritage that was here. I mean, that's part of what our mission talks about on the Deuces. And so, so I think that's important. I think that's how we'll measure success. Those businesses, organizations that were here, and how we preserve their memories.
Other measures?
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
I have a question. So the joint action plan that has facilitated this first phase here is fairly elaborate, and may take many years for the city to execute fully, if it's ever fully executed. Is the work that we're doing here and the role that you all are playing, is that exclusive to this phase one component, this first segment? That what we're focusing exclusively on that component right now?
I'll let Alexi and Beatrice weigh on answer that question.
I might be able to answer this one. Beatrice, jump in too. You know, I think the branding can be a resource for the whole corridor and for the Deuces Live organization. So I don't know that it's necessarily, you know, at least the branding piece is not necessarily tied to a specific physical place. And then, you know, there may be for the vertical elements, you know, focusing on specific geography, but they may be things that could be replicated elsewhere in the corridor in a later phase.
And just to echo what Kaylin said, I mean, this design part is funded from the NEA grant, Art Explosion and the Deuces. And always when I think of the Deuces corridor, I think of where those signs are in 2nd Avenue South and 18th Avenue South. And certainly the reason I wanted to make sure that you know, Water wrote a letter for us to be on the board so we can talk about this, because it may inform some of the things that are going on at Water. At the same time, I think like Mark, Renee, and I are on the call with the city because they're doing, Water's working on a signage project. And so certainly we want to make sure that everything on the corridor is the degree that we can meshes. But I guess that's what art does. Sometimes it doesn't have to match. Does that answer your question, Mark?
Yes.
I have a question about how the branding and graphic elements, the sort of environmental elements, will get buy-in and support from people along the corridor. Because I think it's one thing to sort of do the public realm space, and that's in some ways a lot easier to control. But is there a strategy for outreach to make sure that those same elements are embraced and that people have a sense of ownership for the recommended elements as you're moving forward all along the corridor?
I I can speak just briefly to that, and Beatrice and Kaylin may want to jump in as well. But we do see bringing people. One of the things that we talk about in assembling the working group is making certain that there is key stakeholder engagement in that process. So there are people who are invested from having participated in the processes that moves forward and can serve as project ambassadors for the whole community. So people with the respect of the community, with people's ear, who can go out there and sort of nurture this project forward beyond the specific elements of our engagement currently.
Does that answer your question, Jason?
It does. Thank you.
I mean, we'll also try to find key moments to share and seek input from the larger community. So people do. We hope that people will feel like they are engaged and involved, and that they have a certain amount of ownership for it. Of it. There are some things that you can't control, obviously, but. Does anybody else have any input you want to give us about the measurements for success? And again, this is something that you can think about and you can share in the survey as well. Maybe we can just move through some of the other questions and we can come back and forth to this.
Yeah, and again, quickly, just if there are, obviously, there's intangibles, but then also tangibles, and maybe there's certain metrics or certain things that, that maybe exist currently being tracked or understood. And then, again, just any sort of insights on that could be helpful.
Right. Leadership, that kind of thing. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, the way you measure things sometimes is a surprise. And when we did neighborhood planning years ago, back in the 90s, when nobody liked St. Petersburg, it was a nasty place. The first neighborhood that went through the city's focus of Operation Commitment was the Uptown neighborhood. And for many years, we tried to figure out how do you measure the success of that. And even still, what is it, 30 years later, we're still seeing things that are saying that indicate, wow, that 30 years ago was a success. The number of trick-or-treaters coming to houses back in those days was a measure of success. The property tax, the inflow of private developers. I mean, nobody was building anything in St. Petersburg at that time, but we had the first single-family home being built in downtown St. Pete in that neighborhood. We had new townhouses being built back in the, and if you've only been here in the last 10 or 20 years, you think that that's like normal. Well, it wasn't back then. So who knows what the success is going to be? It might be private development along that corridor. It may be, zero lot line, sort of villagey kind of feel with some individual businesses. I'm not sure what the success is, but I would keep an open mind to many things. And it sometimes you still see some of those measures happening decades later, but you plant the seeds now.
Right.
Very true.
So all of you are in the community, and in one way or another. Some of you know the Deuces community very, very well, know the people that we're going to be talking to. Do you have some insights you can share with us about the things that we can expect to hear? And are there and this next question about are we asking the right questions is something that maybe you want to follow up on when you've seen all the questions and have actually done the survey. But do you have any insights you can share with us about what we should expect to hear in our listening sessions?
This is Gloria. Yeah, I'm going to say expect to hear a lot of mistrust, a lot of broken promises, things that have been promised before. Hear a lot about plans that have started and never completed. Hear a lot about how the city has always let this area down. You want me to go on?
That certainly gives a feeling for it.
Yeah, so that's what you can expect to hear a lot of.
And expect to hear about the expressway.
And expect to hear about the expressway and how that killed a bunch of businesses. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff going that you're going to hear about as it relates to the, this area and what people want to see, what they've been told, and really what hasn't happened.
Right.
I think the biggest thing is going to be to convince people that something it's worth investing their time because something will happen.
Mm. David, did you have something, or you just,
What's that?
did you have something you wanted to share?
No. Oh, I'm just trying to get just trying to get everything working here. Sorry, dear.
That's okay. I have it on speaker view, so people are popping up as they make noise.
Yeah, sorry.
How about from the city perspective and some of the non-DUSA stakeholders? Are there things that we should expect to hear, or things that we should watch out for as we're having conversations with people who are outside the area but have an interest in it?
Well, I think Gloria is the one-person focus group there. She hit upon everything, I think, that you'll probably hear.
Okay, let's go to the next one.
I'm happy to chime in on that a little bit. Just to add, I don't know how familiar you are with the history. I moved here in 2005, so I don't have the deepest understanding, but I do know that this particular neighborhood has been burnt deeply on 3 specific occasions. One having to do with the highway going through and slicing this neighborhood in half. Eminent domain, promises of redevelopment that never came. Then we have the Tropicana Field site, and once again, eminent domain, large swaths of neighborhood demoed, promises of jobs that weren't delivered. And then we've got the Dome Industrial District, which once again, eminent domain, blocks of neighborhood that are like scars on the landscape, where things have been taken apart. And now we're in a scenario where we're looking to the arts to help lift up this neighborhood. And as a representative of the arts community, we feel a responsibility to help bring this area up as we create sustainability for the creative community as well. And there's obviously, as Gloria said, a lot of mistrust, and I think the folks in this neighborhood are much more interested in actions than words. And this joint action plan is an attempt to do that. But the biggest concern that I see coming down the pipe as the arts come into this neighborhood is the concerns about gentrification. So maintaining the history of the area and ensuring that this development that is engulfing the entire city of St. Pete, seeing that is something that lifts all ships instead of creates the tsunami that drowns this neighborhood out, is the goal, and it's a very difficult goal to achieve. But that's the kettle that you're walking into here.
Well, I live in a community in Baltimore that's in the midst of that all the time. It's constant. It's a constant push and pull of respect. Actually, it's about respect. It's about respecting, not saying that we're going to come in and save things, but respecting what's there and really empowering it. Anybody else want to speak to this?
No, but I mean, Baltimore kind of wrote the book on some of these things with the $1 houses back in the 80s or 70s. I can't. It was even the 70s, I think.
It was.
Some of those corridors. I think was it Charles Street or Gay Street or something like that. Where you buy one of the houses for $1. So the fact that the firm is in Baltimore, I thought was extremely important to this particular project. So I think we'll benefit from that. I'm a Baltimore native, and I've seen this go through many generations of change, and live in a very in a community that's got both wonderful assets and a lot of challenges. And
Yeah, the dollar houses, and when you go to a neighborhood like Otterbein now, you would never know that it was a blasted area. But the people who were there before are gone, so you don't want that to happen. So.
Yeah, and similarly on North Avenue, that North Avenue corridor, which is now an arts and entertainment district as well, which is really neat to see it evolving. And we're actually also working on Lexington Market, which is a very similar situation on the west side of Baltimore that was underserved and underdeveloped, and now it's kind of having a bit of a rejuvenation and renaissance with the new market. So yeah, we love challenges. We understand that it's a hard situation and scenario, but we're willing to help as much as we can.
Go ahead, Gloria.
The part about what should we make sure to ask, I think that one of the things we want to make sure we ask is, how do people want to see the community? How can they continue to be involved and engaged, and how can they be a part of the the reinvigorated, so that people aren't left behind? Nobody's looking for anybody to save them. We're just interested in making sure that people are not left behind.
Right.
And I think that that's what the community wants to hear, that we are interested in making sure that it's inclusive, and that people, one group versus another, is not more important than any group, and that they're heard and they're not left behind.
Mm-hmm. This is very helpful.
Do you want me to move on, Kim, or is that?
Yeah, well, it's 2:41, so I want to be respectful. Do we have a hard stop at 2:45?
We have the room until 3 o'clock, but I want to make sure that we don't have a meeting after the meeting, so we sort of have a hard stop at 2:45.
So let's shoot through a little bit. We can come. Some of these other questions might be good for people to answer in the survey. Can you go forward a little bit? Let's talk about this because we're talking about how making sure that people feel engaged. We want to make sure that that we're bringing people in at the right moment. Are there key moments looking at our process when we should go out to the community? Have you, as organizations, found there are particular ways and times that you found that to be most useful to get community input on the project as it's moving forward?
That wasn't rhetorical.
No, I mean, the big thing is to make sure that we don't wait too long to share with people, but we don't also don't give them too much of a look at sort of how the sausage is made.
So this is Renee from WADA. My experience in this area in years far exceeds, and I too have been in some of your Baltimore neighborhoods, and congratulations. I think the really fine line is between sharing and then getting input and helping on and making people feel like their input mattered enough that you actually are using it, and that you wouldn't share the same thing you shared before their input. Does that make sense?
Right, exactly.
And so when I think in terms of how this works, I think it's a communication process of, we have some kind of entry to play type ideas of what we think has been successful, because you're coming in as the subject matter expert.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to be able to speak on behalf of how you should speak with the deuces, but as much to say as there are some things that you will know and have experienced in different communities that I think would benefit our community I can speak for WADA, of knowing and then appreciating that experience, and knowing that we're going to have people that are looking at it through a different lens. At the same time, we're not Baltimore, we're St. Pete, Florida, and we can't just, draft off of everything that Baltimore's done. And we have to be able to, I think, communicate and confirm that we are going to be not lose the localness of who we are, and that that input will be ultimately used. My philosophy in this is, if the input won't be used, don't ask.
Got it.
Just to throw out an idea to the group here, but I know that there are events that happen throughout the year that presumably will still be happening even in kind of a COVID environment, like markets. And I wonder if there's an opportunity to ask questions, you know, at some point early in the process, and maybe to share at, you know, some point later in the process in those kind of semi-public forums, you know, and that way you can kind of show people that this process is happening, invite them into it. That's would require some coordination, but.
This is a longer thought than we probably have time today to discuss, but I think as everyone on the call knows, we'll be in the midst of mayoral campaigning and new elections for our city council members. And it would be helpful to time some of the announcements or progress reports to coincide with key moments in that campaign to ensure that whoever is elected the next mayor, whoever's put on council, has made commitments to continue to support this effort and continue to support the Deuces. So think about it in a political context as well. And then gearing up for the next legislative session, if there are some things that we may want to be aware of or contemplate for that, related to infrastructure projects or, you know, funding that may be available on a state level or on a national level, I think it's probably worth trying to think about what some of those milestones might look like and building the process around some of those political considerations.
Mhm.
Does the Deuces do candidate forums with elected officials that are up and have community conversations?
When I first started, we did one in conjunction with like 7 other organizations. So that we could probably talk some more about that offline. That might not be a bad idea. Do a candidate forum on the corridor.
Because I like the idea of putting this in context of political relevance.
And it may not even be a public meeting where people feel guarded or can't speak freely because they're worried about TV cameras or what people, you know, they're worried about their perceptions as opposed to actually communicating. It might just be a sit down with candidates to say, hey, we're in the midst of this process. You need to know about it. It's really important for this neighborhood. This is what we're thinking. How might you change this or intervene on this, and just make sure that you have buy-in. Now is the time to get buy-in from political candidates when they want everyone to love them prior to election.
But do they? No,
they do. Now they really care. They care later.
I'm totally kidding.
Yeah. No, they really only care now before they get elected. And then they tolerate you after.
They'll care later. It's just intense caring now. It's just a degree of caring.
I was kidding. Sorry to open that up.
It's a level of attention that you might not get at another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't kidding.
Well, let me put it differently. I didn't mean to open that can of worms. That would be a different way I'd put it.
Let's go to the next one. We can come back to this if anybody have thoughts. So, Alexa, you want to go back to two slides? I'm sorry. We passed over this, but since you're talking about other things that are happening and the ways that this project overlaps with other things that are happening in St. Pete, maybe are there other things besides the political cycle that we should be aware of? Things, ongoing efforts, initiatives, partnerships. We've got a lot of great information about other things that are happening, including the Joint Action Plan. But I'd love to hear your brainstorming on anything else that's happening in the area that you feel like we need to be really cognizant of and respectful of as we move forward.
I think the BRT, which will have a stop at 22nd Street, is an important aspect of this.
I suspect that conversations about Tropicana Field that will take place over the next 6 months may also have some impact on this because of the historical alignment of 22nd Street and the African-American communities that were disrupted or destroyed really to make way for Tropicana Field. So there's definitely that larger zeitgeist moving through the larger community that could have some relevance in these conversations as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're absolutely right. And it should, and rightly, it should have some relevance.
And I can add to that, we have a rezoning initiative that is currently underway to change the 22nd, or portion of the 22nd Street corridor from industrial to iMix, which is a significant alteration of how it is currently seen by the city and the county. That's a really significant component of how all this is going to play out. Both the Deuces and the Warehouse Arts District currently are in support of that iMix proposal as it is currently laid out. As we all know, with these sorts of things, the devil is in the details, and it's going to have to be followed really, really closely. But I think that that's another major player in the coming year of where this neighborhood is headed.
It's interesting to think about how many huge things are coming together right now. It's a hotbed of interesting things going on.
We're at the climax or culmination of 10 years of effort from a variety of sources, and it's all coming down the pipe right now. And 5 years from now, this neighborhood's going to look dramatically different than it does right now. And we're in a position here to have some influence over how that change occurs and what it looks like when it's done. So it's time to pay attention.
Are there, I mean, we talked about some of the huge things that are happening. Are there small things that are happening that are more, where there's a lot of personal passion that may not sort of immediately rise to our, into our field of vision, but that we should be aware of and that we should be respectful of? Within or around the community?
You know, if you go to virtually every vacant block in the neighborhood right now, there is some plan in place that's going to be acted upon within the next 2 to 5 years that's going to transform that piece of property. And 10 years ago, all of these spots were sitting vacant. Nobody had any interest in them. And now people are falling over themselves to try and get a hold of them. So every nook and cranny of this neighborhood has some sort of plan for it right now.
What sorts of types of development? All sorts of uses?
Oh,
Well, my sense is a lot of residential, more so than a lot of other uses. Like there's a huge push for residential development citywide right
now. Commerce Park is one of the components that's right along this corridor, and that has already experienced a zoning change, and there is a residential component to that as well as a retail component and industrial. So it's in its own way sort of the forefront to this iMix proposal, industrial mixed, and as that currently stands, it's that mix is a combination of retail, commercial, and residential that would combine with that industrial component. So everybody's vying for different interpretations of this. There's another group that just put the factory in. They're looking for another type of zoning change to expand usage. Everybody's trying to get foot traffic into the neighborhood to try and develop interests. And, you know, as an industrial area, it's really difficult the way it's currently zoned, which is why we're looking at these changes. So there is probably a dozen different groups or factions that have a stake in how things evolve.
Are there areas of conflict that we should be aware of? I mean, are there people who have highly different visions that are butting heads, or you anticipate they will be butting heads shortly?
There's a big pushback in some of the zoning questions from the county that wants to retain much of that neighborhood as an industrial neighborhood.
Wow.
and development pressures where people would like to see more residential development going in. So that is an area of controversy. And I think it's already been alluded to before, but I think there is, with good reason, a lot of concern and reservation about the gentrification of the neighborhood. And as the neighborhood changes, and as some of these improvements or new projects are put in, does that push other people out? Does that change housing stock values? Does that make it impossible for people who've lived there for a long time to continue to live there? I think that is a natural tension that you should be cautious about and planning for.
All right, what's some of the, I mean, we've looked at this, but what are some of the industrial mix aspects of the iMix that you see will be continuing? Is there a particular character to that? And how does that align with the historic character of the area?
That particular iMix where it's located was always industrial and warehouse, so there wasn't residential on 22nd Street. The residential neighborhood started on 23rd.
Yeah.
So
it wasn't always residential. I mean, it wasn't always.
Oh, it wasn't. But it just evolved into it. And is it mostly warehouse, just coming in and out? Is there any manufacturing, other kinds of things?
I think we might be able to give you some background there. I know we're coming right up on the end of our time. And so I wondered if you wanted to preview kind of the questions that'll be coming out to the group, and then we can hand it over to Beatrice to wrap us up.
That's great. So we're just going to run through the questions that we're going to be asking, just to let you think about this. And if you and we'll send you a link to a survey, and you can answer these questions and provide other feedback that you'd like. But let's just flip through them, Alexi, as we go. So we'll do a little bit of tweaking based on what we're hearing from you, but also from your feedback to the survey, to those questions, and we'll just continue to review all the materials wonderful materials we've been getting from Beatrice and from Kaylin.
Okay, so I want to thank everybody for your participation today. As outlined, there's 2 sort of targeted meetings for the NEA Advisory Committee, probably in the latter part of this year. But anybody who is interested to be active on the more active
Working
group, please reach out to me, or talk to Kim or Michelle or Alexi. I'm not sure who's going to reach out to you and express your interest, but I implore you to spend some time going through the survey, and that's going to help us inform. Actually, it's like a first pass before we make the survey more community-wide, and also if there's some questions that you feel would be better worded, or there's some questions that you don't see, please make sure you communicate that to the Ashton Drake group, so that we can put that together. And I think that we could probably send you just maybe in the next couple of days an abbreviated slide program so you know what we talked about. But I want to thank you for your participation. And I'm excited to be working on this, and excited to be working with everyone on the phone. And thank you so much for your time and attention. And I just realized when I do the Zooms that if I'm in charge, I can end the meeting. So unless anyone has any comments, I mean, this is my time to flex. Power,
Beatrice, all the power.
I feel like He-Man is well, I don't know if you watched that cartoon. So thank you very much. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out directly to me or the design group, and I'll include their, well, when they send out the survey, they'll let you know how to contact them. So thank you very much. And this is so exciting. And soon we'll be having these brand new, whatever we're gonna have new, but I'm excited. I'm not even gonna say what it is because I don't want to jinx it, but we're gonna have new stuff on the corridor to go with our brand new streets. Thank you so very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.
Okay, so, oh, yeah.